Welcome to another episode of Health Matters with PA Lynn Szabo. I'm Heather Poland, and what are we going to talk about today, Lynn?
We're going to talk about actually kind of a hopefully positive information on a sad thing. My dad passed away about a week ago.
Oh, my condolences, Lynn.
Yeah, and I think it's important to talk about what he chose. He chose to be at home when he died, and so therefore he was a hospice patient. And I know we've talked about hospice before in terms of the local hospice and kind of the nuts and bolts, but I wanted to talk about more like a family member's viewpoint. And also there is some threats to hospice, and I think we should talk about those. And kind of interesting, hospice derives from Latin, and it means a place of rest and protection for the ill and weary.
Oh, wow. I didn't know.
Yeah, I could have thought for 100 years and not come up with a better way to say that.
Yeah, say it again.
So hospice derives from the Latin meaning of a place of rest and protection for the ill and the weary.
That is beautiful.
That is beautiful. The first hospices were probably started around Malta in the early 1000s. So the hospice as an entity has existed in the world for a long time. And it's kind of interesting how it's different from traditional medicine, where the focus is on the patient and not so much the disease. So it's really personalized care. It's not care of a disease. There's no disease protocol that you follow. It's like in my dad's case, it was the Ed Szabo protocol.
That is unique. I never thought of it that way, but you're right. It is solely focused on the individual human being and not on microbes and illness and science-y things.
Right. And it's holistic. It's way more holistic than saying you go to the doctor because your toe hurts, but they ignore all the rest of you. This was specific to everything that he was, everything that he needed at the end, and everything that he wanted. So the focus is really on symptom management, not curing the patient. And that's hard to understand at first, especially speaking personally about my dad's case. You know, he was a type 2 diabetic, and he was probably in hospice about 3 weeks, and there was a period of time where my sister, for example, was trying to limit his intake of sugar because he's diabetic, and here he is, like over hours losing weight and wasting away, and she's going, "Oh, Dad, I bought you the peaches that are low sugar or no sugar substitute," and I'm like, "Give him the real thing. Come on now."
Right, but we're so used to providing that for that person that that is so funny. But it's true. It doesn't matter anymore.
Part of it is people who love the person who's in hospice care are trying to take care of them in the ways that they usually have taken care of people. And it's hard to say, "Hey, I don't care if his sugar's 800. I don't really care." You should focus on symptom management and comfort and not longevity or curing him. Okay?
Yeah.
So it's managed also this hospice envelopment is managed by a team of professionals like nurses, physicians, social workers, chaplains, and family. So that's a really important statement. We can kind of understand that there's hospice nurses that are working and maybe social workers if that's needed. But if a family has a loved one in hospice care, that family is expected to step up and provide hands-on care.
That's very true, and I think that's missed oftentimes by families.
Right. That was a huge problem in our family because my sisters are like, "Where's the hospice nurse sitting by his bedside patting his hand? You know, I don't have time for this." And I was like, "Sure, we could, hire somebody to do that on your dime. No problem."
Yeah, it's very expensive.
Yeah, and in fact, there was an article in The Guardian actually about somebody who had a family member who was on hospice care, and they ended up paying $10,000 to hire extra caretakers to help the one person that was there to be his support, the one family member who was there to support. So it's super expensive.
Yeah. So later, if you don't mind sending me the link to that article, I'll see if I can put it down in the show notes for the podcast and for YouTube so people can read that.
It was very interesting. It was way different than my experience. I was the person taking care of him, and my sisters were peripheral, and his wife was peripheral for reasons of their own. I don't really know why. But I felt like honored to be there for him when he needed me most. And my medical talents came in to be really helpful. And so I'm glad, because I understood how the system worked, and I worked it to his advantage. Okay. So it also, hospice care supports the family as the family goes on after the loved one has passed. So even after he died, there was still hospice care that was happening kind of in the beginning healing stages that my family is going to be going through. And I appreciated that support.
Wow.
So hospice keeps people in their homes. But it can also be an institutional hospice. So this reminded me actually of Coming Home Hospice in the Castro. Initially, it was begun by an individual. It worked as a nonprofit for a while, and it was located in a beautiful old building near 18th and Castro that initially housed nuns. So it was initially a convent, and then it became kind of this hospice for people with HIV disease who had no other place to go. Okay. And having been in it and done a couple hospice visits, everybody, to my experience, had a private room, because all the little nun rooms were the patient rooms. And it was light, and it was airy, and it was clean, and it was joyful. And it was everything that you would hope in an institution. It's since been taken over by, I think, one of the large medical hospitals in San Francisco, and I hope that it remains as beautiful as it was in the early 90s.
Yeah. There's also the same way we have adult foster care and those types of things. There's individual people's homes where they have 1 or 2 rooms extra in their house where they allow somebody to come and pass away whose space wasn't big enough or their apartment was too small to allow them to pass at home, which is a beautiful gift as well.
Yeah, amazing. So my dad was not in an institution. He was in a home, but the whole idea of hospice seems like it's variable and can be, the perfect fit for people is out there.
And your dad passed in his own home, correct?
He did. Okay. He passed in his family room. So people qualify for hospice when 2 physicians estimate that a person has less than 6 months to live if their qualifying diagnosis runs its usual course. So my dad had extensive cancer of unknown primary. They didn't really, by the time they found it, it was pretty much everywhere in his body, and they weren't really certain where it started. And so he had less than 6 months to live. In fact, he lived about 3 weeks after his initial diagnosis. And kind of weird, he was hospitalized for a fall, and they were working him up to find out why he had fallen and why he was so frail, and he also at that point had shortness of breath. And they found out that he had this widespread cancer issue, and nobody told him.
Oh, no.
They told me, and it was unsaid, but I was the one who told him. I think that's weird. But anyway,
that is weird.
That was in the hospital. And their recommendation, which they never talked directly to him about, but their recommendation was to put him in a convalescent hospital. And when that came up for discussion, it was pretty clear that there was really no other option for us except to bring him home. So how does he get paid for? Well, Medicare Part A pays, this is kind of interesting, Medicare Part A pays a global daily rate. So what we called it was the hospice pie. So, he'd be worried about like who's paying for the nursing service, who's paying for the orderly to come wash me, who's paying for the hospital bed. And I kept saying it's all part of the hospice pie, Dad. The hospice organization gets paid a global payment that covers all care, medications, and equipment. And that's divided into a flat daily rate, no matter how many services the patient utilizes.
So less services, the more that company or
Right.
organization keeps.
Right.
More services, the less they keep.
Right. But I did not find that to be a motivating thing for them, actually.
It is not.
They also have another philosophy where they call direct daily aid. So if somebody needs a medication, then they get it that day. So that means, and they get it delivered. So that means that the word pharmacy delivers up to 11 p.m. at night, which blew me away. So if we ordered something at like 2 in the afternoon, I'd have it by midnight.
Yep.
Yeah. So keep that in mind about the hospice pie, because the hospice pie is being threatened, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. So the people on my dad's team was an amazing RN who visited up to daily, depending on what the need was. And she just so happened to work at the hospital where my dad was initially, and where he had his initial diagnostic workup. And then she also happened to work at hospice, and she very kindly kind of picked him up as her patient.
Just the continuation of care for her.
Yeah, totally. And our family values nurses. We have a lot of high-powered nurses kind of in past generations, and also we're growing them in future generations. And he was very in awe of her, and she
That's
connected
cute.
with him really well.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So he addressed her formally as by the, I guess by the professional name nurse and then her last name. So he never called her by her first name, and so we just picked up it was his way of saying, paying respect to her for what she was doing for him. And she thought, I think we all thought it was kind of cute in an old-fashioned formal way. We also had a social worker who kept touch via email. And when we were talking about could we really keep him at home and what help would we need to keep him at home, she gave us options about outside care and contact phone numbers in case we needed anybody. And let me be clear again, this outside care was just that. So it wasn't part of the hospice pie, but we could have integrated it if we felt like we needed it and could pay for it.
That's like the whipped cream on top of your pumpkin pie.
Right.
That's extra. And you're going to pay extra for that.
If you're saying that if you in your mind are thinking that some nice hospice nurse is going to turn them every 2 hours, that's not really what happens. They count family as important team members. And
they really do.
And a lot of the family has hands-on duties. And that might be hard for some people. But there was some confusion, therefore, about family responsibility, and she helped us negotiate that, so that was helpful. And then the hospice nurses work with the family to answer questions quickly and get people what they need, so that's super helpful. There's also, besides my dad's nurse that was assigned to him, there's also on-call nurses, so when he actually passed, I called the on-call nurse, and she was the one who came out after midnight, actually, to the house to formally, say, okay, he's dead, and this is the next step. So there are people that you can call if it's the middle of the night and you have a concern. So you're not floating alone, but, it's an amazingly hands-on responsibility. My dad also had a dedicated pharmacy, and like I said, we often got prescriptions delivered at 10 to 11 p.m., no matter what his level of need was. So he got a prescription delivered for a fungal rash that he was having a problem with, and it was delivered that day, although I was thinking, he could pick it up in a day or two, no big deal.
Same-day service.
It's direct daily aid. So that's their motto. The equipment delivery guys were a super part of his team, and I don't think that very many families would understand how important their role was. So these are the people who delivered and constructed a hospital bed in his home where we wanted it about 2 hours after it was ordered.
Wow.
So they showed up and with a hospital bed, a bedside kimono, shower chair, oxygen equipment, and a Mayo stand, which is a bedside table. They also, another delivery service promptly delivered chucks, Depends, wipes, toothbrushes, and kind of things that we could use to keep him clean. Different kinds of soaps and shampoos and skin barriers and things like bandages, things like that.
And just for the people who are listening at home and don't understand what those are, chucks are those square hospital-y kind of things that you put underneath somebody, their pelvic region, for accidents, but it also is greatly needed when you're moving an individual, so for safety, so you get one person on either side. But those are chucks.
Absolutely. And they also taught me how to use them, because I'm not a nurse.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense that you wouldn't know how to use those things.
No, I'd never seen anybody given a bed bath before, for example, and how you move them and what's the best positioning of the hospital bed and stuff. I had a crash course. And then they also, after he passed, the equipment was taken away to be sanitized and reused, hours after he passed.
Yeah.
And then, his family room looked like his family room again. It looked like a hospital room, and then it went back to looking like his family room. So the equipment guys were amazing. But my savior, the hygiene guy, he gave Dad...
Everybody loves that person.
Yeah. He gave Dad showers, seated showers in the nearby bathroom, and then bed baths twice weekly. And then as his need progressed, as he was weaker, it changed to daily. He was the one who taught me how to turn him. He was gentle with my dad and was really respectful of his dignity. And he spoke really kindly to him. And at times when my dad was kind of in the active part of dying and he was somewhat delirious, he would address him by a name for daddy, in his culture. And that's how I was talking to him to try and get him to do things, and it really quieted my dad down. So I really appreciate that he was kind with him and that he took time out to help me, that he was available as we needed him more. And in the beginning, actually, he was there and he would tell me to go take a break to take my own shower during the time he was there, so that he would watch and keep my dad safe. So super appreciated his efforts. And then hospice oftentimes have a non-denominational chaplain. Was not needed in our case, as the parish priest came to visit my dad, and my dad preferred to listen to daily mass online. And actually, when he was more delirious, I put chanting monk background music on my iPad, which I think helped him stay calm. So, take-home lessons on the hospice. It's underutilized. I don't think my dad would have had as intimate an experience as family supported experience if he had been put in a convalescent hospital. I think he would have been drugged and kind of squished in a room somewhere. And then a hospice, then this surprised a lot of people in my family, but hospice expects that the family will step up and provide lots of the hands-on care.
Yes.
And this is... it's, bathing my father and things like that is, it's not somewhere I ever saw my life going, but I also see it now after he's passed as kind of an honor that I was that involved with his care. And I'm glad that I was able to be there At times I slept on the carpet next to his bed because I couldn't be 6 feet away. I had to be 4 feet away. And it was very intense, but in my thinking about it and pondering it afterwards, I think it was an honor that I actually heard his last breath and I was there for him. And from what I understand, because of the hospice pie, his estate will not get a bill. This blows me away. Absolutely blows me away. Because think if he had been in a conval or maybe a more institutionalized type of hospice, they would have gotten a huge bill. Yeah. So I imagine that for Medicare, that this type of home care is much cheaper than hospital or convalescent care.
Absolutely.
And even though for us, if we had opted to hire outside people to come in, that still would have been cheaper than the bill we would have gotten from a convalescent hospital. Say.
It's truly cost effective, and
right.
To allow somebody to have dignity than to take it away and institutionalize them.
Right. And hospice is threatened by the Trump administration. They have moved to limit hospice via Medicare payments, and they want to cap the cost of care. Now, most people are in hospice, I think the average is 4 days.
Wow.
And it can be utilized much, it could be 6 months.
It could be up to 6 months.
Potential for it to be 6 months.
And anything above 6 months is palliative care, but still cheaper than hospitalization.
Right. But if you don't, if your loved one doesn't, air quotes, die fast enough, then you can also be re-upped. It's not like...
This is true.
It's one and done. It's more personalized than that. But I think my father's need predated the move by days. So what I'm saying is, even though he was a frail elder, he didn't get incapacitated until a couple of days before he was hospitalized, with his initial hospitalization. And I would really urge people that if they think that hospice care is going to be important to their family, or if they value hospice care because they have been through the procedure and they see exactly how important it is, now is time to make noise. Because the Trump administration, and this was something that Vance talked about, Trump didn't talk about it, but Vance says that they're going to limit it because they've got, because they say there's massive fraud. There was no fraud in my dad's care.
That seems to be the magic word to say why they're going to gut any program. This genuinely affects our seniors, our parents, and our grandparents more than it does me personally. Right. I don't need hospice. Right. I mean, I could have an illness and need it.
Yeah, knock wood. Yeah.
Right, but this would have affected my mom before she passed away 3 years ago, and I did have a brother that passed 2 years ago who needed hospice, but. This is the boomer generation we're talking about. They're attacking our elders.
Right. And so what that's going to do is it's going to 100% put the barrier or the responsibility for care on the family.
Yeah.
And I personally involved with some elders who have had hospice care and passed away at home. There's a real divide between the one or two people who will step up and take care of a dying elder, and the people who think just going out and grabbing them something from McDonald's and is actually care. That's not the care they need. Mm-mm. They need somebody to sit by their bedside, so you have to be excused from work more than likely. You have to be willing to wipe butts. You have to be willing to change, sheets and constantly be doing laundry and, trying to get them to swallow pills when, their breath is really kind of terrible. And it's a hands-on kind of gross things that you never thought you would be doing for the person you loved. Until this, my dad was he was not incapacitated, and my whole memory of my life is he was always there doing the right thing, vigorous and taking care of ourselves. And then all of a sudden, there was this different dad there who was more like taking care of an infant with his own kind of will to do things his way, even if it wasn't like safe. So, and then, arguing with somebody who's delirious about, trying to stay in bed is a difficult process.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't get any sleep. It's like having a newborn. You wake up every couple hours to find, they've tried to get out of bed or something, and there's this new calamity that you have to get him out of. Like once I woke up and he was perpendicular to the long axis of the bed and stuck with his head by a railing, So,
oh no.
Yeah, so this is really hard work. And I see a lot of people getting kind of neglected at home by people who don't understand how hard it is and just bail partially through the process.
Right, or they don't understand what all takes place, and so they think,
Right.
well, I still have to keep my job, and I will be there when I
Right.
get off of work, and
Right.
and they're in their home, and it's they don't. Yeah, it's a lot. Maybe it'd be a good idea to bring somebody in who works in the hospice industry to talk about the day-to-day, what a hospice company does, what the family responsibilities or the expectations for the family to do
Right.
are.
We have done that. We bought, I think our local hospice is Coastal Care, and I think we have brought an administrator in to talk about it, but you're right, the hands-on person.
Right. We always bring it in the CEOs and administrators, and we talk to them and
Right.
hear their fluff, and not the person who does the thing.
Who actually does it, and there are people who love this kind of work. I've met people who work in convals who are, this is just what they want to do for the rest of their life. But it's hard work. It takes a toll on your body. It takes a toll on your spirit. So I just want to sign off by saying goodbye, Dad. You left me with an incredible lesson. And part of me was really happy that I was able to kind of demonstrate my skills. And I hope you were right when you said Lynn will be blessed in heaven. Looking forward to seeing you again. Love, Lynn.